This is Ayush from Edworld, Canada, and we have Simran. So yeah, we've been receiving a lot of questions from you guys about study permits, the visitor visa and all. We're gonna answer all of that. So the first question is it still possible to change visitor to study permit?
Yes, so we've been receiving this question a lot that in 2024, is it still possible to change your visitor visa to study permit? The answer to that question is yes. You can still change your visitor visa to study permit. According to the IRCC policy, you have to do a prerequisite program and then you have to obtain an offer letter from school and also a provincial attestation letter. If you have all these documents in place, then you should be able to apply for a visitor visa to study permit inside Canada.
Okay. And are there any new regulations for study permit inside Canada?
There has been few changes. For example, the first change was implemented in January 2024. That student has to show a certain amount of living expenses compared to last year when it was only around $10,000. Now it's about $20,000. So that is the new addition to study permit requirement. And also for inside Canada study permit application, now they also require a provincial attestation letter. Initially, this program was exempted from this policy, and from January to June, students were still able to apply without a provincial attestation letter. However, from 1st July 2024, Canada has implemented the cap on inside Canada study permits as well. That means you will require a provincial attestation letter, and your college should be able to provide that with your letter of acceptance.
So yes, what is provincial attestation letter, also known as PAL?
Yes. So a lot of students are not aware of this term, that it's provincial attestation letter. Again, the short form is PAL. It's actually a document which is decided by IRCC that every student has to attach in the study permit application. So certain schools and certain provinces only have a limited number of seats available for international students because of the recent capping. So that is the reason every school is provided with a certain number of provincial attestation letters, so they do not enroll students more than that number. So every time when a student is applying, it has to apply under the capping system. So that's why they have to get a provincial attestation letter. However, student doesn't have to do anything with that when you're applying for the college, and when you're obtaining your letter of acceptance from the college, provincial attestation letter should be provided by them only. And that letter has to be used to apply for a study permit inside Canada.
Okay. And has the funds requirement changed?
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, on 1st January 2024, the fund requirement is increased to $20,000 something from $10,000 because in Canada, of course, the inflation is high and the living expenses are comparatively higher. And this number they have for living expenses wasn't changed for many years. So now this is the time, because they're doing a lot of reforms, they decided to change the number. And I think that is sufficient amount a student would require to live in Canada in 2024.
Oh. And is a spousal work permit still possible?
The spousal work permit is still possible, but it's limited to certain categories. For example, if you're going to study a master's program or PhD, then you can invite your spouse and the spouse can work openly. Earlier, the spousal open work permit was available to diploma students as well, which is not the case anymore. But this is not a legislation, it's just a temporary policy, which might continue for 2 to 3 years, and after that they might change it. But if you have a spouse who still comes to Canada while you're studying and you're doing a diploma program, you can still bring them on a visitor visa and they can stay in Canada on a visitor visa. If you have any kids under the age of 18, and if you're studying in a public college in Canada, even if it's a diploma program, your kids can still come to Canada and study for free. So that has not changed.
Okay, and what's the approval rate?
Approval rate right now for inside Canada study permit is around 95 to 96%, which is quite higher compared to the overseas application. In overseas, it's only probably 50 to 60% applications are getting approved, and it's become harder, especially after all these changes in the beginning of 2024. However, for inside Canada study permit, even if the policies have changed, the approval rate is still comparatively much higher than any other category.
Okay. And are there any new changes to postgraduate work permit?
So the government is going to implement a few changes. The first change which they made already was that if you're doing a master's program, then you're eligible for a 3 years postgraduate work permit. Doesn't matter what's the duration of your master's program. However, according to the new changes, they might change this to 16 months of master's degree program, but we have to wait and see. Or they might restrict the postgraduate work permit to like certain occupation or certain programs, but we have to wait for the changes to fully implement to understand what's going on there.
And about the visitor to work permit, are there any new changes there?
Yeah, so visitor to work permit, they had this temporary policy in 2020 during COVID that visitor, when they were applying for a work permit after getting their LMIA, they could apply online. However, according to new changes, they have ended that policy, but they can still flag poll and they can still go to border and apply for a work permit if they have a valid LMIA.
Okay, so yeah, that was it. That was like all of the questions, and I hope it was helpful and informational. And
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.